Good Wednesday morning to you. I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News coming to you from our digital desk. It is time for Cuyahoga's Most Wanted. Every week we partner up with Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County. We feature 3 fugitives who could be on our streets right now when they need to be in front of a judge because they are facing very serious charges. Our 3 fugitives today, 2 of them facing attempted murder charges, 1 of them facing aggravated murder charges. You can see the level of concern. If these individuals are on our street, we need them behind bars and in front of a judge. As we do every week, we're going to welcome in Detective Red Dyer. Detective, how are you today?
Oh, I'm feeling much better, Dan. I apologize for the absence last week. I'm sure you missed me.
We did all miss you. Everybody gets sick from time to time. We understand that, but we've got you back this week. 3 very serious cases here, 3 fugitives on our street, as I said, facing either attempted murder charges or aggravated murder charges. And this first case, and folks, this is how Cuyahoga and Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County, how they send me our list every week. And if you see this right here, this is the longest list of charges that I have ever seen in the year that we've been doing Cuyahoga's Most Wanted. 5 different cases with more than 30 charges against 1 individual. You can see why we want to get Javant Stoner off the street. Red, walk us through the case of Javant Stoner.
Well, Dan, to summarize, Mr. Stoner has 5 warrants with Cuyahoga County with extensive and violent charges. The most serious charge of which is a warrant for attempted murder, where he's accused of trying to end both victims' lives with a firearm. Due to his criminal history, he's not even allowed to own a firearm. And in another case, he pled guilty to failure to comply. And reports in that case state that after a vehicle pursuit and crash in Garfield Heights, suspects in that vehicle fled on foot. Interestingly enough, he was located a short distance later, out of breath and sweating. A loaded firearm was also recovered from inside that vehicle. And of course, in another case, he was accused of trafficking fentanyl with firearms specifications. We hate to see drug trafficking on our streets. Mr. Stone has a tattoo on the right side of his neck of the word determined, and we are very determined to have him in custody. He also has a tattoo on the right side of his temple and has warrants with Shaker Heights for failure to appear. He should be considered armed and extremely dangerous. He's 5'11" and approximately 160 pounds and was last known to be staying in the 3200 block of Central Avenue in Cleveland.
Red, we often note when suspects have tattoos, makes them maybe a little bit more identifiable. As you said, he has the word determined. I'm looking at this list of charges. Clearly, he is determined, if found guilty, to spend an awful lot of time in prison. Let's get to our second case, yet another attempted murder case. What do we know about Charlton Broner Jr.?
Well, what we know about Mr. Broner Jr., as we see again, this individual has 3 warrants with the Sheriff's Department. The most serious of these warrants originates from an incident in East Cleveland. The indictment states that he used a firearm in order to rob the victim. Not only that, but attempt to kill the victim. The victim actually suffered serious injuries during this attack, Dan. Mr. Broner Jr. actually has a history with firearms, as he pled guilty in 2020 to improperly handling firearms inside of a motor vehicle. His co-defendant in that case has already been located, so we'd like information on the location of Mr. Broner as well. He has warrants with Cleveland Heights as well for failure to appear, and the Cleveland Police Department for aggravated assault. As our last individual, he should also be considered armed and dangerous. He's approximately 5'9" and 180 pounds, and was last known to be staying in the 18,000 block of Kildare Avenue in the city of Cleveland.
And we're going to get to our third case here. This one is an actual aggravated murder charge, meaning someone lost their life in this case, and that someone has a family who wants justice, wants to see the person who is accused at this point, obviously innocent until proven guilty, but there are charges facing Michael Johnson Jr. This is a case we have featured before, but so serious, and the U.S. Marshal Service is after him, that we'd like to feature him again. So, Red, let's walk people through again the case of Michael Johnson Jr.
Well, Dan, Michael Johnson Jr. may be known on the streets as Michael D'Angelo Jr. As you stated, unfortunately, someone did die as a result of this. We are seeking closure and justice for the victims' families. Mr. Johnson Jr. is wanted by the U.S. Marshal Service, as you stated, for aggravated murder. And you know, when the marshals are looking for you, he definitely does not want to be found. Reports state that the incident took place in December of 2022, almost a year ago. He went into a family residence where he shot a known male acquaintance in an upstairs bedroom and then had the gall, the chutzpah, to drag the body outside of the residence. The remaining charges stem from an incident that took place in April of 2023. Mr. Johnson attacked the victim in a rage and struck them in the head with a frying pan multiple times, as well as biting them. It's also alleged that he pointed a gun at the victim and threatened to kill her, all while in front of her children, Dan. He had also stolen her stolen her phone and fled prior to police arrival. He has a history of domestic violence as well as violating a protection order. He's approximately 6'1" and 175 pounds and was last known to be staying in the 4200 block of East 131st Street in Cleveland. And as the others, he should be considered armed and extremely dangerous.
It goes without saying, Red, if these three individuals were off our street and in front of a judge, we would all be a little bit safer. Let's talk about why people should not hesitate to call Crime Stoppers. It is a simple call, but people, sometimes they don't want to be a rat. They don't want to be a snitch. They're worried about having their name associated on a case. Walk us through why that doesn't happen with Crime Stoppers.
Well, Dan, as we do every week, I like to remind people that we don't record phone calls, we don't have caller ID, we don't ask for any of your personal identifying information. Everything that we do is done through an anonymous tip number.
And the best part about that tip number is you make that call to 216-252-7463, or if you need to remember it later, 216-25-CRIME is the actual phone number. That tip number that they give you, it's like your reference number. That way they don't have to take your name. You don't have to call up and say, I'm John Smith. I made a tip 2 weeks ago, but I thought you weren't supposed to have my name. That's why this program works. You get an ID number, a tip number. You call back in 45 days. You find out if your tip led to the arrest of one of these three very serious fugitives facing serious charges on our street, and you could be eligible for up to a $5,000 reward. Detective Red Dyer, when we start talking about that reward, what do we like people to know?
We like them to know that crime doesn't pay, but Crime Stoppers does.
Crime Stoppers absolutely pays up to a $5,000 reward for tips that lead to the arrest of the three fugitives today. Detective Dyer, we appreciate you rejoining us. Hope you feel better in the coming weeks. But this is some very serious work we do here. We know it works, about a 58% capture rate, meaning if we're featuring three individuals on a weekly basis, one, possibly two out of those three are getting hauled in some way, shape, or form. Detective Dyer, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
All right, take care, Red. We're going to wrap this up. Again, three fugitives, very simple phone number to remember, 216-25-CRIME or 216-252-7463. Get that reward money. Money can be a major motivator, and that's why it's there. If we have any other breaking news, it'll be here on our digital platforms. Our 11 o'clock news just about 20 minutes away on CW43, then our noon news on Channel 19. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News. Have a good afternoon.
19 News is everywhere. Download our CTV apps and follow us on social media at Cleveland 19 News.
All right, good work, Red. With that voice, you sound even tougher. Those fugitives may be